McIntyre, on behalf of the Janus Oral History Project, I would like to thank you for doing the interview with us this afternoon.
And thank you for the invitation, Marilyn.
So how did you get into the field of working with children with emotional behavior disorders?
I think my parents deserve the credit for that. Somehow I ended up being a youngster who was a helper and a protector and a rescuer. It played out initially in the neighborhood, and then the Boy Scouts, and becoming a lifeguard, and then joining the Coast Guard.
Wow.
And found myself in many challenging situations, sometimes harrowing situations, in which the welfare of others depended upon my performance.
Wow.
And having to do what you needed to do despite what might be going on right now with your own self-preservation interests.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I needed a more challenging audience. I decided to work with folks who don't want to be rescued.
Those EBD kids, some of them do,
yeah,
some
so
of them don't.
Maybe it's just a logical progression into working with them.
Sure.
Initially started out to be a preschool teacher.
Oh, that's neat.
Realizing that I related better with older kids, and just went into special education, sort of a generalized special education.
Sure.
Decided then to sort of jump ship, maybe take another path, and enrolled in a PhD program in speech and language clinician area.
That's neat.
Found out that I needed to get back onto my life path, and walked across campus, introduced myself over at the special ed department, and ran across two exceptional mentors who every time I do something, I sort of hear their voices, guiding me.
I understand that. That's quite a path to the field. How would you describe your career in the field?
That was not a primrose path. It had lots of bumps and cobblestones.
Mm-hmm.
My career path was essentially a series of psychological and professional beatdowns.
Really?
And not allowing them to beat me. Sort of that old saying that, it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up.
Mm-hmm.
I was totally unprepared for teaching kids with emotional behavioral problems. I had the credentials, supposedly I was supposed to be good. I did not have the training to be effective with those youngsters. And I sort of hung my hat on the advice of Benjamin Banneker, that I have learned more from my failures than I have from my successes. And each time it was like, how do I keep from falling down again? How do I keep that from happening? And seeking out mentors, finding that information, and now I think that I'm at a point where I became a skilled master teacher. I feel good about my performance in my later years in the classroom, and now try to pass that along to others so that their path is a little smoother as they try to reach that sunlit pinnacle of teaching.
The sunlit pinnacle of teaching. I haven't been there yet. Have you been there yet, Jim?
I've seen it.
I've seen glimpses of it. That's really wonderful. Okay, the third question would be, what events, policies, innovations, and people have had the most influence on your professional life?
I think that would go back to the story about walking across campus and introducing myself to two stellar individuals who taught me to look behind the data that we have on kids, look behind the paint by numbers, do it this way, oftentimes ABA practices,
right,
and see the youngster behind the description in the IEP. They were very much into the psychoeducational model.
Might I ask who they were?
Yes, and I'd be glad to give them some wonderful thumbs up. And that would be Melvin Reich, who you may not have read about his stuff, but he's set up summer school programs for kids with disabilities. He was always advocating for them. And A.J. Papanico, who was one of the founders of the Council for Children with Behavior Disorders.
Oh, cool.
And they focused on how do we reach and teach tough kids, but in positive ways, in ways that respect the youngster, in ways that celebrate the youngster. And always remembering that there's a kid in front of you that is not an object, that is a youngster.
I sometimes think we have gotten away from, far too far away from that psychoeducational model of looking at the needs of kids.
I am certainly concerned somewhat about the business model as applied to education,
Right.
data-based decision making. That is important to us.
Yes.
It guides us, it helps us make rational, logical decisions, but it needs to be informed by other models, by other perspectives. When a kid tells you to go take a long walk off a short pier, you know,
And calls you maybe every
if we don't look, if we don't look behind the data, we may not see that this kid actually likes us, is seeking to connect with us, wants us to be in his presence. You know, at least he gets the trappings of belonging. Somebody comes over and spends time with him, gives him eye contact, talks at him, not with him, but it's the closest this kid knows
Any kind of
on how to
behavior is
connect
better
with
than
somebody else.
Any kind of connection is better than no connection at all.
It's the greatest of our human psychological needs, the
Yes.
need to belong, the need to be attached. And some kids don't know how to do that in the ways that we would like to see. That's where we come in.
Right.
If you don't yet have it, we will teach it to you. And you may need some of your present social skills out there on the street corner, but we're going to help you become a chameleon to give you other options in life. Yeah.
I
So
love that thought.
I thank my mentors for that.
Wow, that is very powerful. Are there policies or innovations that you have found useful to you in your professional career, or that you feel have had a positive influence?
I guess if we're talking policies, I like the doctrines and documents and legal decisions that have come down saying that we can't punish kids anymore in certain ways, that we can no longer use corporal punishment, that it forces us to go to a different part of our brain. Well, what are we going to do if we can't do this? Well, there are things, but we have to think with a different part of our
Yeah.
brain. And I think that's been good for us. It has forced us to think about how do we reach kids in a way that they would like to be reached, in a way that really works, instead of using more of what already isn't working. Well, punishment doesn't work, we'll get a hammer doesn't work, we'll get a bigger hammer.
Yeah.
No, we need other tools in our toolbox to work with these youngsters. So I'm thankful for those decisions that make us say, oh no, what now? But we come up with well, here's what we'll try now.
Rather than the punishment, I think